Hey everybody, it's Mama 2F1. Thank you guys so much for clicking on this video just to see the little me talk about little things that I like to watch on TV. So you probably saw the title of this video and was like, what? Why is she talking about this? Let me give you a little backstory on me. When I was in high school, actually, before I do that, I should introduce myself to people who don't know who I am. Hey guys, I'm Mama to Life One. I'm a content creator. I'm a published author. I'm a writer. I'm a public speaker. I'm also a mommy of two, and I have one husband. And I like to watch documentaries, and I also watch other things on TV. And I like to just give feedback on. I like to review things that I've watched, like to review books that I've read. I like to talk about things that I've learned being a mommy, things I've learned being a wife. I just kind of like to talk about a lot of different things. So that's kind of me in a nutshell. And I come on here and do videos about all kinds of different things. But again, that's just me. So let me go back to my origin story. When I was in high school, I was one of those women that had more male friends than female friends. I wasn't one of those women that was like, oh, I can't trust women because they're catty. I've never had that opinion because I have plenty of women friends now. And even then, it's not like I didn't have any. I just wasn't as close to them. Hung out with the boys. I was the little sister for all the guys. That was that girl. And I had one best friend in particular named Jermaine. Shout out to my boy JJ, who put me on to wrestling. And I was like, okay, this is different. Sure, I'll watch it. Now, at no time did JJ tell me that wrestling was, what we now call as fake. He never told me that. So I'm thinking every single thing I'm watching is real, from the soap opera to the storylines to the beatings. I'm thinking everything's 1000% real. I have no reason to think otherwise. Until maybe 2 years down the line, there's a special that comes out on ABC, CNN, one of those things. And the special was about revealing the tricks of wrestling to make it look real. I was like, it was like Santa Claus all over again. Like, oh my gosh, I've been living a lie for 2 years. I was like, no, I'll never watch this again. They've deceived me for the last time. And I started watching wrestling. Cut to 2 years later, I'm a freshman now in college, and I have a work study job. I'm working in a dining hall right beside my dorm with a group of guys. And the group of guys were probably like four white men, an Asian man, and one black man. And they would get together every Monday night to watch wrestling. And they invited me one day. And I was like, I used to watch it. I don't watch anymore, but okay, I'll just stop by. So the way the dorms were set up, as soon as you get off of the elevator, there's a common room right there. And every Monday night they would gather in the common room to watch wrestling. And I joined them one night and I got sucked in all over again because all the people that I remember watching before are still there. I'm still seeing Stone Cold Steve Austin. I'm still seeing, oh my gosh, what was that guy's name? It was Kurt something. He was like an Olympic gold medalist wrestler who wore a unitard that had the American flag. Kurt Angle. That was his name. Like Kurt Angle and The Edge and Christian and the Hardy Boys. Like I knew all these people and I was like, oh my gosh, this is great. So I started watching it. I don't watch it anymore now, but I always knew who Vince McMahon was. I knew that he was the leader. Close it. It's my daughter trying to do pantomime while I'm doing a video. Again, mom of two, this is what you deal with when you watch one of my videos. But regardless, I knew who Vince McMahon was. I knew he was the face of, at that time, WWF. And so when I saw they doing a documentary on him, I was like, oh, I'm going to tune in. I know who Vince McMahon is. There are about 6 to 8 episodes, I believe, in this series on Netflix. It's called Mr. McMahon. And I've only watched the first episode. I literally watched the first episode maybe 10 minutes prior to recording this video. And there was so much juice in just the first episode that I don't know what the heck they're going to talk about in the second one. But I'm here to talk about what happened in the first episode and just some thoughts and just some things that I learned that I had no idea. Because I will say, I don't know much about his life. I know that he has a daughter named Stephanie McMahon who's married to Triple H. I know he has a son named Shane McMahon. That's pretty much all I know about this man. And that obviously he is rich. Duh. That's all I know. Before I get to the actual documentary itself, feel free to like this video ahead of time just because you like me and you like my personality and like what I've already said so far. Feel free to share this video with people who are wrestling enthusiasts who may not even know that this documentary is currently out right now. And feel free to comment below because I love talking to you guys, whether it's commenting on something I've said, commenting on who your favorite wrestler is currently or from back in the day, or just saying, hey girl, where'd you get your hair done? Or actually, wouldn't say that because my hair is not done, and that's a story time for another day. But regardless, comment just to say hey, and definitely please subscribe to my channel. That just means everything to me when I see the numbers go up. It's like, oh, people care. It's so wonderful. So let's get started with this first episode. Again, the series is called Mr. McMahon. It is currently on Netflix. I've only watched the first episode. The first episode is called Junior, which I didn't really know what that meant. So come to find out, Vince McMahon is a junior. His father, Vince McMahon Sr., who apparently he didn't grow up with, didn't meet him until he was 12 years old, was like also a big wrestling promoter. And actually, Vince McMahon, as we know him, I don't know if y'all know him, as we know him, he's third generation wrestling promoter. And I was like, oh, never knew that. And I did think it was interesting. Well, he didn't go into a lot of detail about this, and I kind of wish that he would have. And I don't know if it's because he actually doesn't know the answers, but it would have been nice to have some people from his childhood or from his family kind of chime in. Because basically, all he says is, I met my dad when I was 12. I grew up in a trailer park with my mother and an abusive stepfather. He doesn't explain what events led him to meeting his father. He doesn't necessarily say it was because my stepfather was abusive and I had to leave the home, so I sought out my father. Like, he didn't mention that at all. None of that was made clear. So I still don't know what prompted him or what caused him to be in his father's life. And he said he and his dad never talked about the fact that his dad was not there for the first 12 years. Like, he never asked him. It just never came up. I'm like, again, that's something I feel like I would want to know. And if Vince himself couldn't say it, couldn't say why, it would have been nice if there was like an uncle or a cousin or somebody who in the family who was around during that time who could explain what happened or at least explain the dynamic of things. And so that was missing from the documentary, like more about his origin story. But the way he described the relationship with his father, it seemed like it was more business related than it was, oh my gosh, you're my dad, teach me to, catch a ball, teach me to do this. The only thing Vince said, the only thing they really had in common was business, and that's pretty much all they talked about. And when his dad was ready to retire and ready to get rid of the business, Vince wasn't even his first choice, but Vince gave him a plan that he kind of vibed with, and that's how he took over. And at the time, I think it was called World Wrestling Federation, but it was interesting because they said at this time, this is like in the 1980s, they repeatedly showed a map of the United States. WWF apparently was primarily in the northeastern area of the country. So we're talking Maryland, DC, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, like up there. And then the rest of the United States, there were other wrestling companies that represented those regions. And so everyone had their own little territory and no one really encroached upon each other's territory. It just wasn't done. Until Vince McMahon takes over from his dad and he's like, well, look, I believe this is bigger. I believe this could be a big thing. And I'm in a business, I'm all about competition. I'm trying to make this, my company, a worldwide company. So he starts taking his show, because before everyone just did their shows literally in their areas and only broadcast them in their areas on TV. He took his live show and took it to all these different states and ended up coaching some of the wrestlers there because he was making all this money and it was more entertainment and more eyes are getting on these people. So people were like jumping ship from their people and like, oh, I'm going with Vince McMahon because he said I can make this much money. And now people outside of Texas will know who I am. People outside of Seattle will know who I am. So he started kind of making his moves that way and just making like more and more and more money. And his wife is like, you're working really hard. You need to go on vacation. He's like, all right, bet. He goes on vacation. He comes back and he's like, you know what? I think we should do something like the Super Bowl, have one really big event every year. And that's how WrestleMania was born. Actually, even before we get to WrestleMania, when he was first trying to find wrestlers, he was looking for people, obviously, who could wrestle, who have some kind of athletic prowess, but also people who have a huge personality. Because again, he's about entertainment and making sure that people are engaged when they're watching stuff. So the first highly entertaining, energetic person that he brought on board was Hulk Hogan. I didn't realize Hulk Hogan was the first. I thought that was very interesting as well. So Hulk Hogan obviously is one of the people that is interviewed in this documentary because he's such a big part of the story of WWF and its success. And he and Mr. T wrestled in the first WrestleMania. Some of the events leading up to WrestleMania, though, I thought were really interesting and kind of led to some of the scandal of the WWF, I guess. So there's a reporter who's there to cover WrestleMania. They were told, all the wrestlers were told that, oh, he's here to see how popular Hulk Hogan is in New York City because the first WrestleMania was at Madison Square Garden. So the premise is this reporter is going to follow Hulk Hogan around, walking around the streets of New York, just to test his popularity, to see if he's as popular as people think that he is. When really, the reporter was there to see how fake wrestling was. He wasn't really a fan, and I don't think they knew that ahead of time. So all the wrestlers are uneasy. They're all pissed at this reporter for being there and like, how dare you, blah, blah, blah. So one of the wrestlers, and apparently Vince McMahon didn't tell him to do this. Vince McMahon was just like, I wish somebody would do something about that guy because he's going to ruin everything. One of the wrestlers, during a live interview with the guy's asking him if it's fake and all this other stuff. The guy hauls off and slaps my man to the floor. The guy gets up, the guy slaps him again. And mind you, the wrestlers, if you've ever watched wrestling, is not just the fact that their bodies are big, their hands are huge, which means a slap from me is not going to feel the same as a slap from a wrestler. Like, think about The Rock, think about Stone Cold Steve Austin, think about Mr. T. Their hands are quite large. So an open hand slap to the side of your face is not something to play with. And it wasn't like people again say that's fake. That wasn't something that was scripted. That was something very real. And the guy ended up suing everybody because he was like, yeah, the doctor said I have permanent damage in my ear. And so all this happening before WrestleMania. And WrestleMania was a really big deal. Vince McMahon poured all of his money into it. So if it flops, there's a good chance the WWF could have been ruined. So first you have that incident. Then there's a second incident, which I never heard about ever. Richard Belzer. And if you guys don't know who he is, if you guys are in my age group for your 40s, early 40s, I assume that you are a fan of Law and Order SVU, right? The reruns, watching it live when it comes out, whatever. If you are a huge fan of Law and Order SVU like I am, then your introduction to Richard Belzer was as Detective Munch, right? He passed away a couple years ago, so RIP to him. But before that, he was a stand-up comedian and he had his own show, the Richard Belzer Show. Again, didn't even know that until I watched the clip in this documentary. So he's doing the Richard Belzer Show, he's hosting it, and Hulk Hogan and Mr. T are the guests. So I think he's one of those people that thinks it's fake. So he's like, oh, do one of those wrestling moves on me. That wasn't the smartest thing to ask for, but whatever. So he asked them to do this. Hulk Hogan puts him in a position almost like a sleeper hold. And he's lifting him up by his neck, essentially. And you can see Richard Belzer's body. You can't see his head, but you see his body. It kind of like he's holding on to Hulk Hogan, almost like he's like trying to, he's just holding on to him like he can't hold on, like he can't hold himself up. But you see his whole body go slack. And then Hulk Hogan lets go. Richard Belzer falls back. And it's a loud thud when his head hits the floor, right? The bare floor. So Hulk Hogan thinks that it was like a prank fall, like, oh, you're being dramatic. Oh my gosh, I fell. So he's like lighting this up in his face, like, hey, you awake, thinking it's all like a game. He helps Richard Belzer get up, and Richard Belzer's like, okay, guys, we're on a commercial break, thanks. Because of course, you're a professional, you play that stuff off. He turns around and he's wearing a suit jacket. Richard Belzer turns around and you can see blood dripping down the back of his head onto the collar of his jacket. I was like, what the freak? What? And so he sued WWF, he sued Vince McMahon, and he sued Hulk Hogan. It's like, I didn't know any of this stuff. That was just wild to me. So this first episode ends at the end of WrestleMania, and it's a huge success. They make a bunch of money. A lot of eyes are on it. And it's like, yeah, WrestleMania was good, it was a success. Then right after WrestleMania, all of these scandals came out. I don't know necessarily what the scandals are, but that's how the episode ends, saying that there's a bunch of scandals that came out after the first WrestleMania. So that's how the episode ends. How the episode begins is even more interesting. So when the episode begins, Vince McMahon gets into a wrestling ring, and there's a little folding chair in the middle, and he just sits down with the folding chair. He's like, this is the first time I've ever talked about myself. I don't typically do this. And then there's a thing that comes up on the screen that says that this documentary was created through over 100 hours of footage shot in 2021. Right? So it's like, okay, that's good. I don't know just why we necessarily need to know that. And then it shows like all these other people sitting down in their chairs getting ready to be interviewed. So I recognize The Rock, and I recognize again Triple H and Stone Cold Steve Austin and John Cena and all these people. And then before any of them talk, another thing pops up on the screen that during the filming of this documentary, during all this video footage that they got, there is breaking news that Vince McMahon is stepping down as, I don't know what position was, it's like CEO or owner, basically stepping down because there were all these sexual assault allegations. And he ended up paying, I think, $12 million to four different women. And it's like a bunch of stuff coming out. So he officially resigned in January 2024. So they're letting you know that all of the stuff you're going to see here is before these allegations came out. So there may be stuff that you hear that's like, well, how come they didn't address this? It's like, no, 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 this is before the allegations came out. So that's why they had it up there. But I was like, y'all starting with juice. And then you end with juice. It's like, it was fascinating. One of the things I also thought was very interesting, they haven't gotten into yet, and I'm sure that they will. Outside of Mr. T, they haven't talked about any other black wrestlers as of yet. And I'm sure in the beginning that wasn't like, not they didn't have black wrestlers, but I don't think they had many prominent black wrestlers as of yet. Right now it's really Hulk Hogan focus, Andre the Giant focus, a couple other like international people. You're not really seeing a lot of people of color for the most part. And again, I'm sure that's something they'll address later, I'm sure. And then when it comes to the women, they did say, which I thought was very fascinating. One of I don't even know his name. There's a wrestler who's in a music video. Girls just want to have fun. Cyndi Lauper. I'm sure you guys are familiar with it. In that video, there's a wrestler with dark curly hair and like facial hair who plays Cyndi Lauper's father. So after that connection of wrestling meets pop, because she was like very popular at the time, this man jumped on that popularity and basically kind of worked with her to help her, well, asked her to help to come over to wrestling essentially. She was not a wrestler, but she played the role of a wrestling manager. And she was essential, like at the time, I guess, of bringing more eyes to female wrestlers. So even in WrestleMania, she had a part in that. And there's a lot of footage of her like talking all trash about these wrestlers, doing little skits where she's hitting wrestlers on the head with bottles. I didn't know any of that stuff happened either. I was like, what the freak is Cyndi Lauper doing there? I do know that over time, at least when I started watching wrestling, that's probably when I stopped watching wrestling. I know they did have celebrities come out. I know they had Trump come out and just other celebrities who would come and like do a skits like here and there. But I had no idea it started that long ago. And so I just thought it's a very interesting documentary so far. I think Vince McMahon is one thing I'm getting, the main thing I'm getting about his personality, which is actually a good way to be as a businessman. Say nothing of his personal proclivities. But as a businessman, the fact that he wasn't content with staying where he was. Everyone interviewed who talked about his father talked about how he was good at what he does as a promoter and all that stuff, but he was very narrow minded. It was very much, and they said it before, it was the good old boys club. Each good old boy has their own part of the country to do wrestling, and we're going to keep things the way it is. We're not going to rock no boats. And his son came along and was like, this is a business. We're about competition. If you can't compete with me, then that's your fault. But I'm trying to make this bigger and badder and wonderful. I'm trying to make this international. I don't want to just keep this to New Jersey. Why would I do that? There's no money in keeping it to one place, especially when there's talent all over this country, especially when I think we have a product that is entertaining and it's funny and it's smart. This needs to be seen by everybody in the world. So therefore, I'm going to take my shows and I'm going to go to all these different pockets where people are going to be. They're going to pay money to come see my shows. And he wasn't there specifically to get wrestlers from those areas, like poach other wrestlers. His main thing was, I want to make sure that y'all know who we are. Because again, this is a business. And how the heck am I going to grow if I keep my father's short sightedness and stay in this area? So as a businessman, I thought that was incredibly smart. They haven't gotten to a lot of his personal stuff because even when the WrestleMania came along, he was married already to his wife Linda, who he's still married to, and his daughter Stephanie McMahon was already here. She was like 5 or 6 years old, but so far they haven't delved into his personal life at all. So there was no mention at all about outside of the relationship with his father. It wasn't a real relationship. They don't talk about like how he met his wife, how she got involved in the business, how she felt about him doing this business. There was also no mention of him becoming a father for the first time, and this is how I felt, and blah 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 blah. So I'm hoping that each episode will focus on different areas of his life and not just on the business. Because yes, this Vince McMahon is known for wrestling. We all know that, obviously. But he's also a man, which means he has a multiple sides to him. He has that business side, which is a huge part of his public persona. But the whole point of doing a documentary is to get to know some of your personal stuff as well. So I'm hoping that further episodes will focus on that. Right now, it hasn't really. And again, I think it was a missed opportunity to talk to older family members, like I said, uncles, aunts, cousins, who could give more information about his relationship with his dad. And again, how that came about. And also, he says that he lived with his mom and his abusive stepfather. He doesn't mention his mom after that. So I don't know if he and his mom had a bad relationship. I don't know if his mom I don't know if he maintained that relationship once he like got in touch with his dad. It wasn't clear if he moved in with his dad at 12. Like none of that is made clear. It's very murky, and I don't know if I'm supposed to just come to my own conclusions. I don't like to do. If it's a documentary, tell me exactly what it is. Because I'm a writer. I can come up with conclusions all day long, but that's not the point. So it would be nice if that was made a little bit clearer. And again, I'm hoping that maybe in a further episode, maybe that whatever the episode I'm thinking of will focus just on his family life, and we'll get more information about his relationship with his mother, about his relationship with his dad. I don't know if the man got siblings. He was the only child. None of that is clear. So we'll see. But so far, I think it's interesting. I like the way that it's being shot. Yeah, I have hope for because it's at least 5 to 7 more episodes left. So there's a lot of time to really get things going. The first WrestleMania, like I said, was in 1984, 1985. So we do have to get all the way up to 2021. So there's a lot of room to cover there. But I'm looking forward to it. So what I want to see in the next episode, I want to see more information about the female wrestlers. And I want more information about his marriage. Those are the two things I want to see in the next episode. So I'm probably going to watch the second episode. Probably not tomorrow because I actually got some stuff to do. But at some point this week, I'll watch the second episode and I'll do a video right after just so everything's really fresh in my mind. But yeah, that was the first episode of Mr. McMahon. Again, if you guys have already watched the documentary, if you watched all of it, don't spoil it for me. Please don't be those kind of people. Those kind of people, unless somebody is paying you to post spoilers somewhere, why do it? What is the point? You've literally gained nothing if you're not getting paid for it. So if you've already seen the whole series, don't tell me nothing about it. I honestly don't want to know. I'm gonna watch it regardless, but no, don't tell me. But let me know below who was your favorite wrestler back in the day or currently. Who was your favorite wrestler? Let me know what other things you want to see in this documentary. Let me know if you have some pointers about documentaries I should watch. I will say there were 2 documentaries that I saw that I'm not going to do videos on, so I'll just let you guys know about them. One was it's called Lost Daughter, I think, on Netflix, and it's about a woman who gave up her daughter for adoption when she was a baby. Years later, she decides to look for this daughter, only to find out that this daughter has been missing since she was 14 years old. It's an interesting story. And so this woman, the biological mother, spends her time trying to figure out what the heck happened to my daughter, who should be held responsible. I'm trying to get justice. So that's one documentary that is on Netflix. There's one on Amazon that is the history of the black quarterback that is produced and hosted by Michael Vick. It's a 3-part documentary docuseries, and he interviews everybody from Donovan McNabb, Warren Moon, Randall Cunningham, who else? Patrick Mahomes, Cam Newton, Colin Kaepernick. It's a nice balance, I think, of people from the past and current black quarterbacks. And I liked it. I thought it was interesting. So if you like sports documentaries, that's definitely a good one to watch. Again, that's on Amazon Prime. And yeah, that's my video, guys. So again, comment below, subscribe to my channel, share this video, like the video, whether you share it or not, at least like the video. Give me some likes. Give your sister some likes. Just a couple. Just a little bit. Just give me some likes. But yeah, I'll see you guys soon. And thanks, guys, for watching. Peace.